Where did this come from? We knew that it was coming this year. We knew that the technical test had just happened, but essentially, one of the biggest games of the year, maybe the biggest game of the year so far, besides Rebirth, was shadow dropped in early access. Hades 2. And I've played a few hours of this, gotten through a couple of the major bosses, and I want to share with you my thoughts. This game is in an incredible state right now for an early access game. You'll see when you buy the early access that it tells you the kinds of things that are coming up next. They say it's a work in progress, but let me tell you, this is in really, really good shape. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how it's different from Hades 1, how it's better, some ways that it's not quite as good, and overall, if I think that it's worth your time and money. Spoiler alert, it definitely is. First, so let's just jump right in here into the game, and I'm going to jump right in. This is your home hub where you eventually end up here, and it's called the Crossroads, and it's this home hub that you have, and you can do all sorts of things here, and that's one of the main things. You play as Melinoë, who is Zagreus's, from the first game's, sister, and this dude named Kronos has taken over everything. I guess he's got Hades hostage or something or whatever, and it's all about death to Kronos. She has to kill Kronos. And she does talk about her brother a little bit. One of the things that I love about the Crossroads, the home place here, is that there's a lot more to do in general, and there's a lot more boons that you can get between runs. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you played Hades 1. You know, it's a roguelike game where you're going in, and each run you go really, really far, and you have permanent bonuses along the way, and you get better and better and better, etc. But there's a lot of big differences here. So the big differences are mainly, as I said, there's just a lot more boons. So you've got your fated list here that you're working towards. We had that in the first game. You also have these things called incantations, which some of them just, they mostly unlock new things within the Crossroads, but also in other places as well throughout, which is something that you saw a little bit of, but it didn't have a mechanic tied to it, so that's really cool. There's a store here. We had this store before, but there's more stuff to buy in general. I always felt in the first game that essentially between runs, I hadn't accumulated enough. There wasn't a lot of permanent boons that I could get. It was a very slow roll, whereas there's more to do here. You see I can plant resources that grow in between runs, and then the next run it'll be good. See, this one's good. I'm going to harvest it, and then I'm going to plant new things, and these are just little things that can help me with resources. There's amazing, interesting people to talk to, as always, here. I'm going to get to the gameplay in a second. I just want to show you around the Crossroads. This is Hecate. She's the headmistress, so she's the one where, similar to Hades in the first game, you would talk to all the time. Hecate is the one here, and you know, the writing is fantastic. It's really fantastic. Hecate is really interesting, and one of the cool things is that they give you some backstory. In fact, there's even in between deaths at one point you play as little Melinoë, and it shows her playing a game with Hecate, and it sort of fleshes out their relationship. It's amazing the storytelling that they use. Just like in the first game, everybody remembers everything that happens in each run. We've got, you know, all these folks here. We can talk to Odysseus. It's just really, really fun. And then when you want to go on your next run, you can go here. Now this is where one of the big boon changes comes. So these are your permanent boons, and you can see over here on the right here called Grasp, and you can level up your grasp. In fact, it looks like I might be able to right now. Yep, I was able to level it up because I had enough Psyche. So Psyche is one of the currencies that you can get during the game, a new currency. And you can also unlock these permanent boons. And these permanent boons, you allocate them based on their skill points. So this one's 4, this one's 2, and so I have up to 16. So I just unlocked it, so I have 2 left to do, right? So then I have to choose. And then another currency called Ash that you get during the game unlocks these. You can also buy Ash and Psyche with Bones, a third currency from that dude that we saw earlier. So there's just a lot more going on in between runs, which is one of the biggest things here in the Crossroads. There's just a lot more going on, and that's really interesting. The cast of characters is still really, really fun. I will say that when it comes to the Crossroads, like, you know in Hades how you had that thing where you kind of like, you know, you almost couldn't wait to die because it was so much cool, it was so much fun stuff would happen when you were hanging out with Hades and everybody else at the House of Hades. I don't have as much of that feeling here. It's still really fun and cool, and there's a lot of great conversations and everything, but I don't have as much of that feeling in this game as I did in the first game. So I just want to throw that out there. That's a bit of a, like, just a slight negative, not a big negative. You see, this is where you have your weapons. So I've only unlocked 2 of them. I've got the blades here, the dual blades, and the witch staff that you start with. And you also unlock these tools. So the shovel and the axe I've unlocked. I think there's going to be a fishing rod and something else, or something like that. And you unlock these through this, right? And oh, it looks like I can unlock the Tablet of Peace now. So I'm actually not going to, because I want to save my silver to unlock the Moonstone Axe. But you unlock these tools, and you can use those tools to gather resources when you're out on runs. But it's interesting, you can only take one tool at a time. So you can't, you know, if there's stuff to shovel, you know, and you have the axe, you can't shovel it. You don't have the tool. You can only get axe. So you have to choose during that run what to do. So let's just jump into the gameplay so I can show you what's different. Okay. So the what you're going to see here is something that's really cool. And again, like there's more surprises during runs. Like this, I have no idea what's going to happen here. It's a complete surprise. I don't know who this is. I've never seen it before. It's the first thing that I'm seeing during a run, and I'm hours into the game. So it's continuing to reinvent itself, which is really, really cool. So let's see. It's Hermes, God of Swiftness. And I'm getting a Hermes boon now? Yes. So this is what you normally see, very similar to the first game. You get to choose between these three things. Greater evasion. Whenever you are struck, you may dodge any damage. Greater qualities, receive bonus. Foe's projectile speed. I'm actually going to choose the gold in this one, so I can get a little bit further. So you're going to see here, dodging. So you see the little, so after I dodge, you see that little trail. That's when I can dodge again when the trail goes away. In Hades, it was like unlimited dodging, right? Or you could have a double dodge, and it was different. This is quite different because your dodge is limited, but you have this new ability, which is the sprint. I'm playing terribly. You have this new ability, which is the sprint, which allows you to run around. So you hold down A if you're using a controller, which they do recommend, and you're sprinting. And the sprinting gets booned. You don't get your dodging booned as much, but you do get your sprinting booned. Like you'll sprint by somebody and Zeus will hit it with thunderbolts or something like that. So this is one of the new, another one of the new things. You see it says 70 out of 70 in the bottom left. That's your essentially your mana. And so when I use my specials by holding down Y, which in this case for this weapon is this, or if I hold down the shoot button, the X button, another one of my specials there. It sends a fiery blast. It's not showing it because of the enemies. We'll show it to you in the next one. But that uses up mana. You can see my mana is now 10. And so that actually goes pretty quickly. So you're going to see that you're going to have chances during different doors to unlock more mana, like to get your mana up a little bit more. There's a resource to pick up, so this stuff's a little bit different here. These enemies are the worst. If you haven't played this game yet, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, these yellers. So this is another new thing, of course. We have the casting ability. So when you do that, it freezes everybody inside that circle, which is pretty cool because it allows you to set them up. Like you can set them up with, like hold them in place for the special, depending on what you're using, which can be really helpful. But the coolest thing about the cast for me is that it often gets booned with a certain ability that destroys things inside of it. Like they'll light on fire while they're stuck inside of the cast, or they'll get hit with lightning bolts while they're stuck inside of the cast, and that is really helpful. And so here I only have one choice. Usually I have two. So really interesting stuff there. And you know, you're gonna see more of it as we go along here. But the gameplay, you know, it's very the same, but it's very different. And I think that's one of the great things is that it's different enough to be interesting. The enemy variety is very strong. Lots of different types of enemies, and the different biomes, locations, areas that you go into are extremely different. There's also this thing called a hex. So after you use enough of your magic, your mana, essentially, you can use RT to use your hex. It's sort of this superpower that you have. So we'll do Total Eclipse, and there we go. And we haven't found anything yet to mine, or we bought the axe, so we're gonna be mining here today. So now I have the choice between Gift and Ash here. But I think that one of the big differences here is this use of magic. I mean, it kind of makes it a little bit more of a resource management game, which is very different. You weren't doing as much of this before, but now you're constantly looking at your mana and seeing exactly where it's at. The biomes are extremely different, as I said, and the enemy variety is just completely different depending on what biome you go for. I mean, you will not be seeing these types of enemies again once you get to the next area. As far as the story goes, I really like the story. I love that it's connected to the first game. So she's Zagreus' sister. Zagreus was the main character of the first game, right? Just sort of like an angsty teenager dude who was very strong and had good morals and not in a great relationship with his dad, who ended up being the final boss, right? Sorry, spoiler alert. And here, Hades is, you know, taken hostage or whatever by Kronos, and essentially there's this little faction of people who are like the anti-Kronos rebels, and Hecate, however you pronounce that, she's sort of leading them. She's the headmistress, as Melinoë calls her, and then Melinoë is here to fight the battle against Kronos. She's basically been raised her whole life to destroy him. It's been a number of years since the events of the first game. Melinoë is like completely grown up. And it's hard to say exactly where the story's gonna go. I mean, these are just early, it's getting unfolded to me bit by bit over time, which is really cool. I like it. It's like unpeeling an onion. The writing is really, really incredible. And, you know, I have to say it feels different enough and the same enough. It's the same enough where I feel like, oh yeah, this is Hades, and it has everything in it that made it special. And it feels like a complete game right now, even though I know that I don't believe it technically does have the full campaign in it right now in early access, but it feels done. Unlike a lot of early access games, this game feels done. But it's different enough and innovating in enough interesting ways and building off any of the minor problems that the first game had. And it's done enough to like sort of justify it so that it doesn't feel like a DLC or an expansion. It feels like a true sequel. It's a separate story with a separate set of mechanics, a new character who thinks and talks and acts completely different, but also has that sort of cool, confident attitude about them with a bit of vulnerability, which is really interesting. And, you know, it's the same enough and it's different. So these are just my early thoughts on the game. I wanted to share these with you because you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Now it's like at the top of the Steam store. What should I do? Is it worth getting? What does early access mean? Hopefully I've given that to you in this video. Still a really small little channel. Like and subscribe really does go a long way. And I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to have fun.